Welcome to the show, everyone. Today we're diving into a thought-provoking question. Are you selling vitamins or are you selling painkillers? And while this concept, it often comes from the worlds of sales and marketing, it has profound implications in leadership as well. So buckle up as we explore how understanding this analogy can transform the way you approach leadership and influence and problem solve.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Let me ask you, as leaders, is it more important to focus on the here and now, or is it more important to focus on the future? Well, the answer is yes. The challenge is that sometimes we don't exactly know how or where to spend our time. And often we let current environments or pressing matters, they really start to dictate our schedule. This isn't something that we even think about sometimes. It's just something we respond to based off of what's happening in the environments that we're in. But the risk could be that we're focusing on one area too much. Anything that is focused on too much can leave an imbalance in our leadership pursuit. And this is normal to do in leadership, and it can happen for a host of reasons. I mean, we have competing priorities, emotional triggers, the immediate pressures of the day, the expectations of our team, maybe the culture of our organization. How about limited time? Maybe you fear losing control. Maybe there's a lack of awareness, a fear of criticism. These are just to name a few that can force us into laser focused on the short or focusing too much on the long. There's a lot of factors that weigh into the leadership journey. But for the sake of discussion, let's take a look at this dynamic as vitamins versus painkillers. Let's break this down. Vitamins are nice to have. They promise future benefits, but they're not necessarily urgent. I mean, I don't need vitamin C. I feel fine. Well, isn't that kind of the point? Take the vitamin C, build your immune system. Vitamins, they're about improvement, prevention. They're about incremental growth. Painkillers, they solve an immediate problem. I got a headache, I take a Tylenol. They alleviate discomfort. They resolve issues, and they deliver relief that you need right now. Sometimes they're the thing that we gravitate most towards in leadership. But in leadership, this analogy, it reflects the difference between addressing urgent needs versus promoting long-term vision and the growth that we need in our organizations. The question really isn't about which is better. It's about recognizing when you need to be a vitamin and when you need to be a painkiller as a leader, because you're going to need both, and they're both important. So let's break this down a little bit further. Let's talk about this painkiller, this painkiller leadership. What does it do? It addresses the immediate need, the here and now. As a leader, you're often the painkiller, solving urgent issues, diffusing the conflicts on the team, responding to the immediate crisis need. This is essential because unresolved pain, it's going to derail your team's focus and productivity. So it's always in play. Here's some things to think about of, am I a painkiller leader? Are you stepping in when your team's overwhelmed? Are you constantly running in whenever the team's overwhelmed? Are you providing clarity when confusion arises? Are you solving the problems that keep your people from doing their best work? These are painkillers, right? Being a painkiller means showing up in the moment, decisive, taking action. And I'm not here to tell you that's a bad thing, but that's what painkiller leaders do. But then you have vitamin leadership. This is the leader that's looking at creating long-term impact. What am I doing right now that's going to promote the health in the future? Leadership isn't just about putting out fires. We know this. It's also about investing in your team's future. This is where being a vitamin comes in. A vitamin could be huddling everybody into the conference room to do some training. That's not a painkiller. There's no immediate gratification with that kind of a thing, right? Are we nurturing growth through coaching, through mentoring? Are we taking the 30 to 45 minutes to do the one-on-one debrief? Are you inspiring your team to think beyond just the day-to-day grind that everybody inevitably is in? Are you setting the foundation for resilience, creativity, the innovation that the most thriving teams have as attributes? Vitamins don't solve problems immediately most times, but they ensure the team is healthy and they ensure that the team is set up to thrive in the long run. There's some common pitfalls though with this dynamic that many leaders face. One of those pitfalls could be that you rely too heavily on painkiller leadership. Leaders who focus too much on solving these immediate here and now, I got to go run to this immediately. What happens is if this becomes a trend for you, you become a leader that becomes very reactive. And when leaders are like this, their teams might feel micromanaged or struggle to grow because they're only given solutions, not empowerment. This is the leader that says, do it this way, fix this, don't do it that way again. And by the way, there's some real immediate gratification with this because we can see these spikes of productivity because of this immediate going in, doing it. Do you find yourself always stepping in to fix things? Are you the fixer leader? Do you look for the problems that you can fix? Do you thrive on that? If so, you might be depriving your team of the opportunity to learn and develop their own problem-solving skills. I mean, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned by touching a hot stove, right? Are we allowing this to happen from time to time so that people can learn from these opportunities or not? But there's also another pitfall, the overemphasis on vitamin leadership. This can also be as big of a risk. Leaders who only focus on long-term growth without addressing present challenges, they can come across as disconnected. You know, they're kind of out of touch. If your team is struggling and you're talking about vision and strategy, it might feel like you're ignoring their pain points. I mean, you got to go over here in the corner bleeding to death and you're talking about vision and strategy and how there's going to be a brighter tomorrow when what he needs is a bandage, right? So there's this balance that has to come into play. Are you overlooking day-to-day issues that your team is struggling with because you're too focused on the long term? These are the pitfalls that we're talking about. So the key here is to strike the balance. You got to strike this healthy balance between being the vitamin and being the painkiller. Ask yourself the question, what does my team need most from me right now? Because what we can never allow as leaders is to allow ourselves to fall into this preference of what we prefer or what our style is. This really isn't what great leaders do. What great leaders do is they're looking at the team and the people that they're leading and saying, what do they need most from me? And am I losing sight of the long term for the short term? Am I losing sight of the short term for the long term? Am I focused too much on today's problems at the expense of tomorrow's growth? Or am I focused on tomorrow's vision so much that I'm neglecting the challenges that are happening right before my eyes? Leadership, what it is adaptability. You know, that is it. I see environments, I see situations, and I see people, and I adapt to those things. You don't have to be just one or the other. You can be both. It really depends on the situation. So here's my challenge for you. Take a moment. Reflect on your leadership style. Over the past week, were you more of a vitamin or were you more of a painkiller? If you've been putting out fires nonstop, think about one way maybe that you can shift to a long-term growth-oriented mindset. I'm not here to say that you have to, rebrand yourself as this new leader. But if you've been putting out fires nonstop, it's safe to say that you haven't taken pause to think about the future enough. If you've been focused on vision and strategy and your 5-year strat plan constantly, ask yourself, what immediate issues do I need to address to show my team that I'm tuned into them right now, that I'm present, that my leadership impact is being felt here in the moment. Leadership isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about intentionality. By asking whether you're being a vitamin or if you're being a painkiller, you can always fine-tune your approach to meet your team where they're at. What we don't want is one-sided leaders. The most effective leaders know when to ease the pain and when to build for the future. They don't choose. They adapt. They let the environment dictate where they're going to be. That is the opportunity. Thanks so much for listening in. I hope this episode is helpful. If this provoked your thought onto the painkiller or the vitamin, and maybe there's a leader in your life that you know, hey, maybe they're leaning towards this one side too much. Maybe just send the link to this episode to them and let it challenge them as well. Until next time, keep leading well and keep turning the pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.